Hey everyone, thank you for stopping by Living To Do's review of Married at First Sight, Season 18, Episode 12, called I Just Want to Eat You Up. Before I get started with this review, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it, and I thank you in advance. So let's talk about this episode. This episode was an emotional episode for most of the couples. Let's start with Emem and Ikechi. We see Ikechi, he's in his confessional. They're supposed to move back in together as they agreed upon last week, but he's saying that he doesn't want to move in with her. We see him boxing with a friend, and he's telling his friend about his relationship and that he doesn't want to tell Emem who he is. He wants to show her. Meanwhile, we see Emem. She's out with a friend washing her dog, Rico, and she explains to her friend what she's been through. And some of the things she has gone through is that she's been called names, aggressive. She has been called, an asshole. And she wants to step back from the relationship because she's been disrespected. Ikechi and Emem meet up at the shared apartment and they talk about their relationship, and Emem wants to see effort on his part. Emem also wants to discuss the issues that have brought them to this place, and Ikechi doesn't want to talk about it. Emem says not talking about it is hurtful. These two really cannot effectively communicate with one another. So they get in a little more discussion, heavier discussion about not talking about their problems. And he just wants to move forward. And then she finally says, if you don't want to talk about it, just say, I don't want to talk about it. But that's what he was saying. They didn't use the exact same words, but they had the same meaning. I don't understand why she didn't catch on to that. Now, this kind of happened last week on the episode. They were with the experts, and he was talking about how he was treated, how he didn't like being around her. And then she was saying, I need a little cheat code about how to treat you. And I think he was telling us that when he was talking with the experts, and then she says something about a cheat code. I don't understand that. That was just kind of weird. I thought it might have been the editing, but she's done this twice where he basically said something, and then you come back around, you argue about it, then you kind of say the same thing. I don't know. Oh, Emem. Okay, so she said, they both agreed that they didn't want to move in together, so they agreed upon that. As he left, she told him that, she wouldn't be reaching out to him. That's for him to do. He needs to make the next move. Let's see if he does reach out. That could be his way of quietly letting her go, just not reaching out. And they both know why. Later, she said in the confessional that she's just gonna treat Ikechi like a man that she's dating. She no longer will refer to him as her husband. Well, she finally woke up. If a man disrespects you, just leave him where he is. Okay, let's move on to Madison and Allen. Okay, they're in activities, another sports activity. So now they're playing catch together at the park. And Madison used to be a softball player. After they were playing a little bit of catch, they talked to one another. They stopped playing, and she tells him about how she was poor growing up, that they used to be on food stamps. That must have been embarrassing. Ugh. And then on her 12th birthday, her mother came over with her boyfriend to her party. And I guess she was just drinking and embarrassed poor Madison. I don't know. It's hard to share. I guess her mother is still living. They they talked about kids, and Madison said that she was scared to have them. She didn't want to disappoint them. Later, they go fishing, an activity that Allen likes to do. He used to fish with his father. They would spend hours fishing, but not saying anything. They would spend like 4 or 5 hours together fishing, and then they would go home. So that was his way of spending quality time with his father, which is kind of, you're with your dad, it's quiet, but can one see that as abusive? Is that effective parenting? Not saying anything? Are you doing more harm than good? That's a hard one. At least he had a dad, I guess. I think he's kind of doing the same thing with Madison, just quietly waiting for her. Allen spoke of his stepsister, and his stepsister blames him for their mother not being in her life because his mother was spending her time researching law and representing herself in the court custody battle of Allen, which was a 14-year custody battle. So this woman, this sister of his, they stopped speaking for 18 years. And they didn't speak until right before his wedding, where he spoke to her on the phone and she apologized, saying it wasn't his fault. And he broke down in tears. Madison comforts Allen from a distance by patting him on the back. It was like he wasn't her husband, but more like an acquaintance or someone you don't know at all. And he said stepsister, which I found interesting. That would be her stepmother. So maybe she had no mother in her life at all, his stepsister. Because I could see if it was his half-sister, then that's her mother. But that's his stepmother. Interesting. I would like to hear more about that. Later in the episode, they write letters to themselves, to themselves. And we learn that Allen didn't have much confidence as a teenager. And Michelle, we learned that her grandmother tragically died in a car accident when she was a teenager. And since she didn't have her own mother in her life, the death of her grandmother was real tragic for her because she was the mother figure in her life. During this scene, Madison asked Allen more about his masculinity. Does she not see him as masculine? Or just not masculine enough? Just because she doesn't see bulging muscles? I think Allen is very masculine. Okay, let's talk about Camille and Thomas. All good times here. Okay, so Camille takes Thomas to her family home. It's her grandmother's house, and her dad, Tracy, is there. And her fine Uncle Keon. Oh my God. Keon is cute. Anyway, Grandma breaks out a photo album of Camille playing basketball in high school. She has all the newspaper clippings of her. And I guess she was pretty good, but she didn't really have that drive, that, go get 'em spirit, knock 'em down. She was more of a kind competitor. She had a newspaper clipping where they asked, "Who is your dream date?" Thomas said it was Reggie Bush is her answer. I think Thomas is better than Reggie Bush, just for the record. Later, Tom took Camille to his bio mom's house, Finny. And Finny likes to party. She likes to drink. She used to be a dancer. And they reunited with each other about 7 years ago. When they got there, they took shots with Finny. I think Camille's really going to like her mother-in-law. I know she got 2 of them, but she's really going to like this one. Drinking with the mom. And Finny shared her story with Camille. She had a child around 15 or 16, a girl. So he has a sister. I don't know if they're the same dad, but she has a sister, or Thomas has a sister. And I guess she got pregnant again with twin boys. and she knew she was too young to take care of 3 kids. So somebody she met talked her into adopting, putting her kids up for adoption, and she thought, she really wanted them, but it was the best thing to do because she was so young. And it worked out for the best because Thomas and his brother Tim were raised in a very good home. And Thomas loves his mother back. They look similar. He seems to really like his mother. I know some might say that his mother, his white mother, is blacker than him. But we're all not a monolith, and Thomas is fine just the way he is. In fact, I love it. Okay, let's talk about Carla and Juan. It seems like Juan might be warming up to Carla a little bit after, they last episode they talked about her business plans. They wrote letters to themselves in a coffee shop. Carla talked about how she would go unnoticed so nobody would have nothing negative to say. And it's so weird how I understood that. I wonder if a lot of people feel that way. Just don't be a part of nothing, or don't engage in this or that so there won't be a bad outcome. And then Juan wrote a letter to himself, and he wrote it to a 6-month-old self, his 6-year-old self, and his 16-year-old self. And I mean, what a touching letter he wrote. He said when he was 6 months, he was almost kidnapped. So he was taken to live with a relative. I think he went to live with a relative for 8 months. And then when he was 6 years old, his family left again. They went to America for a better life. They were going to come back and get him. I think this is why he likes the security and the stable partner, because he wants to keep, a solid foundation. And so when Carla's talking all this gibberish and she's all over the place, it's not something he's interested in. He's looking for someone who is solid. I guess they were in Colombia, and the cartel were after them. So they were going to America to search for the American dream. They moved, and it was very hard for him because they were suffered in poverty, and he had to learn a new language, and they lost their home in the housing crisis. That's a lot. 6 to 16. 6 months to 6 years old, and all this happens in your young life. And then when he was 16, his father was diagnosed with cancer. I think it was pancreatic cancer, or it was cancer. But he lived, and I think he's still living to this day. And he was angry for the longest time. I think he's only been able to heal in the last couple of years. And he learned to change his attitude about things. He's overcome his triggers. He chooses happiness. But when he talked about, I think, his 6-year-old self, that's when he got up and cried. He had to walk away because it was painful to read out loud. But I think by him sharing that brought him closer to Carla. It's not in a sexual way. I just think before it was kind of surface level type of relationship, fun. And he got serious with her. And I remember on the honeymoon, she said that he was just about jokes, and she likes some seriousness. And she got it in that moment. And it just seemed like they became a little closer. Carla was proud about his growth. She told him. He explained that the night of his dad's diagnosis, the family went out dancing. The dad was out dancing because he chose happiness and fun, and everything is a blessing. Everybody is a blessing. That was a touching story to learn more about Juan. Later, Carla was willing to have Juan meet her parents. Now, I wonder it's because she feels closer to him, more of a connection, that now she's willing to have him meet her parents. The thing is, the parents didn't want to meet on camera. So they brought their camera right up until, I guess, in front of their home, to let them know, let the viewers know that they're going to have a meeting. They want their privacy. They didn't sign up to be on camera. So Juan is a little intimidated about meeting the family. And I mean, normally that's how it should be. But with Juan, maybe he is also because maybe this relationship is going in a more serious direction. And we didn't really see that in him making this a relationship that he was going to keep. All the signs pointed to he might be dipping out at the end. So him meeting them, and I'm sure as a good boy raised up well, you don't want to disappoint the parents and drag their daughter around and not have good intentions for her. After the dinner, they get back on camera, and Juan said he had a great time. He loved their mom. The mom cooked good food, and she was a sweetheart, and the dad was funny, and he enjoyed himself. So maybe he can see himself a part of that family. Later, they meet with more family members of Carla, this time on camera. Carla is touchy-feely. Her relatives ask if they are in this relationship. Juan cuts them off, says, no, it's not there yet. We're still working on going deeper before intimacy or apparently any level of affection. And I think that was it for them. Okay, so let's talk about David and Michelle. Yeah, David and Michelle. David and Michelle are on their way to Michelle's family's house for David to meet with them. Her mother will be there, and her sister and friends. On the car ride over to Michelle's family, Michelle mentioned that she received a strange text from David. And David, we see them in the car, and it seems like his eyebrows raised like, ooh, ooh. Michelle said that the text said, "You are so damn fine. I want to eat you up." David claims that this text was for his cousin. Apparently, she sent him some food, and I guess they're foodies, and this is how they talk about food. Michelle doesn't believe him, and the explanation that he gives doesn't sound right. It sounds like he's lying. And the way he cleared his throat.
They went to this place in Chinatown, and it looked so delicious.
People clear their throat like that when they're uncomfortable, anxiety, they have just lied, they don't feel comfortable about the lie. Everything about it went towards lying. Like he talks about food that way, and he also blamed it on his phone. He said his phone was broken, and he hit the last person that he texted. His phone did it, and it was her. When they get to her family's home, she informs the family that, they're struggling in their marriage. That's what she always says. But she has reasons today. She doesn't go into detail about the text here. She just says, like she would have said the day before, we're just struggling in our marriage. Her friend was there, and her friend told David, you don't see her as we see her. In fact, her friend said it took her a while to get to know her. They met in college, and she tried to talk to Michelle, and Michelle had her one-word answers, and she was boring. It took a long time, but Michelle warmed up finally. They became friends, and she can tell you that when Michelle is your friend, she's your real friend. She's a loyal friend. She's a faithful friend. She's a good friend. It just takes a long time for her to warm up to people. Later, Michelle meets her friend up for drinks, and that's where she tells her friend about what's really going on in her marriage. She tells her about the text. She tells her that he claims it was about food. She wants to know what she should do about it. Her friend says you should address him about that. So later, Michelle meets up with David back at the apartment. David's in the living room, and he's waiting for Michelle because he thinks they're going to read letters that they wrote to themselves, but Michelle wants to talk about the text. She says it's suspicious. He gives all this crazy answers. She says, I want to see the photo. And he goes, you want to see the photo? Okay. He grabs his phone. First, he's looking around like, where's his phone? It's in his pocket. And he grabs the phone, he takes it out, and then he says, I'm not trying to get into this with you. He doesn't show her the photo, so you're lying. You're lying. What would be the issue of showing somebody a photo of food? Because there's no photo of food. We also learned when she was talking to her friend that she thinks he's lying because at the time of the text, he was supposed to meet up with the other couples. Who is a part of the other couple group? Madison. Though we don't know this yet, but he should have been texting them to meet up with them. So those were the last people you would have texted. That's what Michelle thinks. And I think Michelle's onto something. So when he says, as he's pulling out that phone and not showing her anything, dodging her, I'm not trying to get into this with you. You are a guilty MF. That's what you are. You're the one always thinking I'm a good old boy. Oh, Eddie Haskell attitude all through this marriage. And then you're texting other people. He comes clean about texting other past girlfriends, but on a friendship level. No sexting. No sexting. Oh, well, who's to believe you? We have yet to see the evidence of the food photo that you were commenting about. We're not going to leave you about anything. He's acting all guilty and defensive, and she sees it. He's over explaining the situation. Michelle says she's hurt, that her feelings are hurt. And all while this is going on, he doesn't give her any real assurance. Just a bunch of bullshit lies. She states she doesn't believe him, and he says, okay, whatever. If you don't believe me, it's whatever. He was saying things like that. And then she stood up and went out of the room and walked past him and said, for the record, you're lying. And that's how the episode ended. Boy, they came a long way. She was right. They take one step forward, and hell, she took 10 steps back with this one. But that was the end of the episode. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it, and I thank you in advance. But I gotta go because I got living to do. Bye.